So over the past weekend, the long-awaited Stellar Blade released their demo for everyone to try out. And obviously, people were definitely playing this demo for the nail-biting plot, of course. But seriously, when it comes to the game itself, I was genuinely surprised at the sheer quality of everything. Even now, I'm waiting for the chance to go back and challenge the extra boss battle with Eve once again. And after this demo, it seems like the reception around the game is mainly positive, especially with its gameplay. And isn't just about Eve's backside, but actually it's about gameplay now. Crazy thing to see, I know. So how do I feel about this game so far? Well, before we get into that, please don't forget to like the video and subscribe for anything JRPG related. So straight off the bat, when just starting off at the beginning, I could already tell how visually stunning this game really is. I mean, this looks like it's on the level of Final Fantasy CGI, and that's honestly high praise coming from me, as I hold Final Fantasy at such a high regard when it comes to its graphic fidelity in general. The character models look absolutely incredible as well, from the textures on their nanosuits to the individual characters themselves. Honestly, even the throwaway soldiers look like they could be main characters in a story. None of them even look like they give off the vibe of an NPC. That's how well designed these in-game models look. And while we're on this topic, I think the main character is a technical achievement in herself. And no, I am not talking about that. What I really mean is Eve, and specifically her long hair. To be able to animate that and get it just right must have taken an extremely long time, and must have been a nightmare to work with. I think even the director Kim Hyung-tae stressed how difficult it was to work with Eve's hair alone. So yeah, I think that's worth some praise. When it comes to the performance of Stellar Blade, I can't believe I'm saying this, but the game actually holds a smooth 60 FPS. Yes, I know, a PS5 game that is well optimized is a crazy thing to see in 2024. In my playthrough of the demo, I hardly experienced any issues with performance. No major dips or anything that was noticeable. Even with all of the effects in battle and enemies surrounding you, the game really is a technical achievement this time around. Now, when we're talking about gameplay, this is where it really won me over, and I'm sure many others as well. The combat here is extremely satisfying and rewarding, focusing on timed parries and dodges to overwhelm your enemies. When this game was first being shown in trailers, many were quick to compare the combat to the likes of something similar to a Devil May Cry or Bayonetta. However, after playing through the demo, the combat here is definitely leaning more on a Souls-like or even just another action RPG like Sekiro that heavily relies on parries. I myself see a lot of Star Wars Jedi Survivor, as I've recently played through that last year. The point being that Stellar Blade isn't the hack and slash type of combat we thought it was going to be. Whether you like that or not really comes down to personal preference. For me, I'm impartial to either or, but Stellar Blade's combat really won me over in the end. How deep it will go will have to be seen, but if the combat can keep the same momentum and introduce new ways to play, then I am all for it. The one thing that this game does have in common with the Souls-like are the heart-racing boss fights, and especially if you went through the extra boss challenge after completing the main demo, which was for me extremely eye-opening. The fights themselves really do act like Sekiro bosses, as you are really relying on parries and reaction timing to get the upper hand in a boss. What I really enjoy is how the enemies in Stellar Blade have a mechanic that sort of acts like a stagger in Final Fantasy, but once you break that stagger bar, you'll be able to deal a devastating blow to the enemy like this was a Doom finisher. Of course, the game itself isn't as hard as a Souls-like, but another interesting thing here is that you can actually take Eve's suit off during battle. And no, don't get the wrong idea. The director Kim Hyung-tae describes this as pretty much manually increasing the difficulty in general, as it removes the shields from the nanosuits Eve can use otherwise. So if you're one of those people who really wants to go the extra mile and push yourself to the limit, well, there you go. Honestly, I wish more demos would do this, to where they'll give you more from the combat to test on an extra boss. I think demos now have been better with this, in particular Final Fantasy 16, as they let you play through one of the early dungeons with multiple abilities unlocked, and to really get the feel of the game's combat. I do think it's always a great sign when a game does this, as it shows that they're really confident in their gameplay, or just the game as a whole. Now, for someone like myself who is very excited for this game, one thing I always look for in any big RPG game is story. And after finishing the demo a couple times through, I honestly find myself a bit underwhelmed by the story so far. Now, granted, this is literally a 30-minute to an hour-long demo, so I'm not going to be judging too harshly on it. But right now, just off the short demo, I didn't find myself after the fact gushing over how I want to know more about the world and characters. Well, besides Eve. Most of what Stellar Blade is telling is really stuff I've seen before. You know, the post-apocalyptic world, a space squadron filled with a bunch of robotic women. You probably see where I'm going with this. The thing is, being inspired by Nier Automata is one thing, but my hope is, even if it is, that it can become its own thing that is wholly unique on its own. And listen, that's not to say that I'm not interested to see where the story ends up going, because I still really am. It's just that my first impressions of the story weren't all flying colors. But I mean, for an hour-long demo, I'm not really expecting much anyway. So overall, I'm still very excited to see how the story will progress, and to even be surprised by it when the game eventually releases this month. So with all of that said, I'm definitely feeling a lot better about Stellar Blade than ever before. The game in general looks absolutely stunning, and Eve herself is already looking like an absolute badass of a main protagonist. Of course, during all of its showcases and trailers, it was already hitting all of the right spots I was looking for in a video game. It may not be as fast-paced action as people would like, but with its mix of precise levels of gameplay and hack and slash, it still left me more excited than when I started. And while I'm still not 100% sold on the story of Stellar Blade, I'm still very intrigued to see where it goes and how much of an impact it'll have on me as a big story person. And if it's inspired by Nier, then my hope is that that'll at least somewhat translate to the narrative as well. Honestly, with how much this game is getting recognized in its marketing just off the character model for Eve, I wouldn't be surprised if this game does extremely well. And with the strong impressions this demo has already left on everyone already, my hope is that we see even more high-budget games from Shift Up Studios in the future. But for now, we can look forward to their new game, Stellar Blade, releasing this month on April 26th.
Last